Let me reverse this a little. If Mayor Mamdani did the following, if he put price controls on product like pharmaceuticals, if he bailed out farms, if he took private stakes in public companies, if he said to energy companies, you're making too much money, if he proposed credit card caps, you would all go apoplectic, as would your viewers. That's what President Trump's doing. You could argue he is the most powerful socialist in the country today. We should be clear. President Trump ran as a populist. Now I would say he's much more of a globalist, what he's doing with the war. But populism is definitely front and center. And so we have to grasp how we can take populist ideas and make it more capitalistic. So that's kind of where I am.
I'll have to think about that, Robert.
Well, all those 5 points I made, he did, the president. So you should have the argument with him.
Okay, that was former UBS America CEO Robert Wolf on Fox News earlier this week, describing how Donald Trump could be considered the biggest socialist in the country.
Let's bring in former host of Hardball, Chris Matthews, writer at large for the New York Times, Elizabeth Buemiller, and contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, Molly Jong-Fast. You know, Chris Matthews, I know because I am a conservative, and I can tell you that for 45 years, conservatives and Republicans would bitch about Richard Nixon's 1971 wage and price controls. How dare he do that for 90 days? They went on and on and on and on because it was anti-free market. It was anti-capital. It was the centralized state getting involved in business. So here with Donald Trump, you have somebody that's taking us to pre-Thatcher Britain days. As Cato has said, he seized chunks of over 30 private corporations. He has, as Richard said, he has put in price controls. He's bailed out industries. He's talking about credit card limits. I mean, this guy is talking about and bragging about the fact that they're seizing private companies.
Well, here's what I think, and I've been thinking about this for days now. The DSA has done a favor to non-DSA Democrats, to regular Democrats who are regular members of the party. They've listed what they believe in. Their chair made that clear. It's in Peggy Noonan's column this week. It's very clear. We're going to get rid of ICE, not just ICE. We're going to get rid of the border. We're not going to have a border anymore. We're not going to effectively control people coming in and out of the country. And so I think we're going to get rid of prisons. We're going to get rid of the Pentagon. We're going to negotiate. Well, what happens when your hostages are your former diplomats, like what happened with President Carter? People take your diplomats hostages. What do you do then? You need an army. You don't like to have an army, but you do need to have one. All these positions can be denied by any regular Democrat. All you have to do is go out there and say, thank you, DSA, for telling us what you believe in. I don't believe in that stuff. And discriminate, because you can't follow AOC. I like AOC generally, but she came out and said, we're just a big tent party. Well, the problem with the big tent defense is every Democrat has to defend all this crap coming from the left. They've got to say, I believe in all this crazy stuff, and that makes me a Democrat. You've got to say, no, I'm not a member of the DSA, and here's why, and make it very clear. So it's going to require politicians to be good politicians and say, here's where I stand.
Right.
This is what I'm a regular Democrat. I'm for labor unions. I'm for opportunity for everybody. I'm for civil rights. I'm for all the things I believe in as a Democrat, but I'm not with this crowd. And I think that's going to be a line that has to be drawn by Democrats, because I'm telling you, the last 6 weeks of this election is going to be an attack on El Sayed and the DSA in New York and the Mamdani, and it's all going to come out and blame every Democrat for everything the DSA is doing. I don't believe in the DSA plan. I don't believe in their checklist of what they believe in. I'll say so. But running for office is going to require that, I think, before the election.
Well, there's really nothing new under the sun. I'm reminded of Ronald Reagan in 1966. He had a John Birch problem. And the way Reagan brushed it off is, Buckley and Reagan and everybody was trying to sort of push the John Birch Society out of the party or to the side of the party. And Ronald Reagan said, well, listen, if somebody votes for me, that's because they're endorsing what I believe in. It's not because I'm endorsing what they believe in, and that's their choice. But I believe what I believe. And Democrats need to start saying that. If people vote for me, it's because they believe in what I believe in, not because I believe what they're doing. They're not running. I am. But Elizabeth, I do want to circle back, though, and talk about Donald Trump. Every day it's socialism, communism, communism, socialism. Mike Johnson, communism, socialism, socialism, communism. Really, the greatest socialist seizure of private companies or chunks of private companies in American history has been happening in the Trump administration over the past year. They went after Intel. They forced NVIDIA to do a deal. They've taken one company after another company, mainly tech companies, over, taken large chunks of them. And you have Scott Bessent and Treasury. They're actually bragging about being socialist. So, yes, if you're a conservative, there is a threat of socialism on the rise in America, but it's coming from within inside the White House.
Yeah, whenever Trump talks like that, he talks about the threat of communism in the United States. I always think he just sounds like he's like a relic of the Cold War. I mean, he just sounds so old. And I think it's, I do think, however, voters do not see the socialism that you're talking about with the takeover of private companies by the government or the deep involvement of the government in these companies. But what I think is interesting about the Wisconsin race is that it just shows that there is a bridge too far. And that, when you have a candidate like Francesca Hong talking about in Wisconsin about canceling Thanksgiving because it's from a colonial holiday and it upsets people, she just could not get away from that in the last weeks of the campaign. So I think also there's been success for Democratic Socialists in New York, Detroit, Philadelphia, Denver. But, in vast swaths of the country, this is not going to work in a general election. And I think we saw that in Wisconsin. What I also wanted to say is that a good candidate matters. El Sayed, we'll see what happens in Michigan. He is a very talented politician as opposed to Francesca Hong, who had a hard time in the last weeks of that campaign in sort of articulating her and explaining her past messages.
Let's talk about that race in Wisconsin.